With Monaco all done and dusted for another year, let's talk about F1's Crown Jewel event on a Crown Jewel weekend in motorsport. Here's my thoughts on the 2025 Monaco Grand Prix. Starting off with the fact that it was pretty processional. Max Verstappen tried to hold on for as long as he could to see if Charles Leclerc would get past Lando Norris, but to no avail. Verstappen then had to pit and came out in 4th, but he was never going to lose 4th place, even if he got what was rumoured to be a 30-second time penalty for not doing the second mandatory pit stop. But the top 3 was pretty much set in stone from the word go, wasn't it? Lando Norris from Charles Leclerc from Oscar Piastri. In fact, what in the top 10 really changed? Apart from the retirement of Fernando Alonso, which we'll get onto in a bit. It was such a processional race that people were stuck behind initially what was dubbed the Lawson locomotive, as Liam Lawson pulled back so much that Isaac Hadjar was able to pit and not lose any places, before Williams did the same thing twice, which led to the strangest penalty of the race, where George Russell got himself a drive-through for deciding to do something and overtake just by cutting the Nouvelle chicane, acting as if it was the old chicane. And I could understand that. I think he thought he'd probably only get a 5-second. A drive-through seems very extreme for it. But what's even funnier is he was able to serve the drive-through and still come out ahead of Alex Albon, proving how much Albon and Sainz and Lawson and were all holding up other drivers to better themselves or their own teammates in the case of this race. What's strange is it means that some of the headline results from this race were actually quite muted. Esteban Ocon getting 7th, for example, really well done. It was a big deal that Haas managed to get their car through to Q3. But Isaac Hadjar also getting 6th. I think that he has scored more points now than the second Red Bull has all season long. I think he's also outscored Tsunoda and Lawson combined for the 2025 standings as a result of this race. I mean, Lewis Hamilton's 5th place, which was so far off that Adame, as his race engineer, didn't tell him how far back he was when Lewis was like, am I still a minute behind the guys? He went, we are driving around the track. No, I'm asking, are we still a minute behind? The gap's 44.8. Yeah, those performances, which are quite respectable results, especially for a Ferrari team that thought they were really going to struggle and have been battling for the 4th or 5th best team the past couple of weekends. They're sort of overshadowed by how processional the rest of the race was. But let's consider fixes for this, because it's not a good idea that F1's Crown Jewel race is overshadowed by the fact that, despite the fact they tried to put in 2 pit stops, people were just driving slowly. And they were driving slowly to hold on to their own position because it's almost impossible to overtake around Monaco, but it's also because they were helping out their teammates. Now, NASCAR has the 100% rule. That doesn't mean, you have to be like the 107% where you have to be within a certain time limit. No. What the 100% rule means is you can get penalised if you intentionally slow. And that doesn't mean, looking after the tyres and making sure they don't grain kind of slow. That means, for instance, let Fernando pass for the championship slow. Sorry, let Michael pass for the championship. Fernando is faster than you. I got my Ferrari orders wrong. But either way, it's something that NASCAR has, and it's something that other sporting series can have as well. I mean, F1's tried to do it before by banning team orders. What it led to was the creation of such famous phrases as hammer time. But it could be something they could implement. Now, do you punish the driver or punish the team? That's a separate matter altogether. I would say punish the drivers, because the drivers could choose, and if the team decides to punish the drivers, then you punish the teams. Take it out of their cost cap, either by permanently reducing their cost cap, or by fining them and making it count towards their cost cap for the given season. But I'm just spitballing ideas here. Either way, the unluckiest drivers were the two to not finish the race. Pierre Gasly, who had a problem going into the Nouvelle chicane in qualifying with Lance Stroll moving across, got spooked by Yuki Tsunoda doing the same thing and went up the barrier, sort of like Charles Leclerc in 2018. It was a bit jarring to see the replay footage where it was the trackside camera, where they're looking at something completely different, and then suddenly there's an Alpine going through on 3 wheels. But arguably, the biggest upset of the race was Fernando Alonso. 250 races now since Alonso last won a Grand Prix. And he retires from the points. He still has not scored any points in 2025. And to put that into perspective, the only drivers who haven't scored points apart from Alonso are Doohan, Colapinto, and Bortoletto. Lance Stroll has still scored 100% of Aston Martin's points this season. They've scored 14 points from Lance Stroll himself, which is good enough for 8th in the standings at the moment. But those 14 points do not have anything from car 14 in them, which is so strange, because even in the past couple of weekends, Alonso has shown point scoring form. He's qualified in the top 10 in the last 2 weekends. But it's just rotten luck. I mean, it was the timings of VSCs and safety cars at Imola. It was the engine letting go here. Miami, a good performance, was scuppered by a crash. What will it take to fix the rotten luck that Fernando Alonso is having this season? And since I mentioned the point standings, here we go. Piastri is now only 3 points ahead of Lando Norris, thanks to 3rd place for Piastri today and the win for Norris. Verstappen is now, 25 points behind Piastri? And George Russell, after a non-point score, is still on 99 points, still in 4th place somehow, but 37 points behind Verstappen, and 62, nearly his number 63, behind Oscar Piastri. Leclerc is now 23 points behind Russell on 79. Lewis Hamilton's up into 6th. He's on 63 points. And Andrea Kimi-Antonelli is down to 7th place on 48 points, with Alex Albon in 8th on 42. The top 10 being rounded out by Esteban Ocon on 20 and Isaac Hadjar, because Lance Stroll's run in the top 10, which started at the start of the season, has come to an end. Hadjar is now on 15, Stroll is now on 14, ahead of Sainz on 12, Tsunoda on 10, then it's Gasly on 7, Hulkenberg and Behrman on 6, Lawson on 4. Everybody else hasn't scored. But in the team standings, every team still has scored. I talked about this after Imola. Every team has scored so far this season, which is great to have so early on as well. McLaren on 319, Mercedes on 147, Red Bull on 143, Ferrari on 142. So whilst McLaren has more than double second place Mercedes now, they're doing pretty good for themselves in the Silver Arrows, because they've managed to have a non-scoring weekend and still are 4 points clear of Max Verstappen and another point clear of Ferrari. I'm being flippant when I say Max Verstappen. I know Tsunoda has scored points for Red Bull this season, but Verstappen is hard carrying that team. Anyways, those are my thoughts and feelings. I've gone into a lot of detail with this one. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and give me any feedback on what you think works in this and what you think I could do to improve in the future. If you've come across from the short form content, do you find the long form content works, for example? Because I know that the shorts that I put into my feed are just slightly more edited versions of what you get in these long form videos. Thanks for watching, folks. Till next time, it's bye for now.